Hey everybody, Jim Ingersoll here. Welcome to August 16th, 2023. This summer's almost over, which is mind-blowing. We're having a good time with a lot of people on Zoom already. Welcome to our Inner Circle community. If you're brand new and we haven't met yet, I hope to meet you sometime soon. It's nice to have you along. Taking in a lot of new folks over the last month or so. And the last 3 weeks, we've been digging into financing really heavily. The 3 weeks before that, we talked about finding deals. If you can find deals and you know how to do the financing, you can do as many deals as you want because you don't have to use your own money and you don't need a realtor or a bank to do it. And that's a nice way to go. So today that sort of continues. And we're going to dig into what we call wrap financing, which is a way to leverage. There's kind of two ways to wrap. You can wrap like a subject to deal or owner financing and resell to another buyer. I've done that. And I've had some bumps and bruises along the way doing it, but I have done it. And I know a lot of people are doing it nationwide. But today we're going to focus on the lending side of it, which I've also done, but I haven't done recently. And I keep asking myself this week, why am I not doing it? I think I know the answer, but I need to, because it's a high leverage activity with a really high ROI. So if you're able to basically come together with somebody else who has some of the funds and you've got some of the funds, then it's just a matter of sort of structuring how everything works out. But there's a lot to structuring it to make sure it's done right. And I would say the majority of the people trying to do it are not doing it right, which brings me to our guest today, Jeff Watson, right next to me. Jeff is a highly respected lawyer from beautiful Ohio, spends a good amount of his time on the road speaking nationally. Cheryl and I have had the pleasure of having dinner with Jeff, and he's an amazing guy. And over the last several years has become what I call truly a friend. And that's why we can banter back and forth so openly and easily, because we know each other that well. Jeff, welcome to Inner Circle. It's truly a pleasure to have you along today.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me here.
All right, so Lindy, are you all set with your economic update?
Yep.
And I'm going to dig into wraps.
Yep. All right.
Economic update every week, Lindy.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to full disclosure. I have changed the look and feel of my slides. So you guys in the chat, if you don't mind, please telling me you like, you dislike, thumbs up, thumbs down. This one was ugly. Don't ever say that one again. I'm open to whatever. So this is my normal front slide. So first, we're going to talk about Consumer Price Index, the CPI. And just for all of you new people to Inner Circle, welcome. And the definition of the CPI is a measure of the average change over time in the prices paid by urban consumers, so that's you and I, for a market basket of consumer goods and services. So like when I go to the grocery store and I buy my groceries, or I go to my oil change place and they charge me way too much, I think, to change my oil, so that we can see that the all-in CPI went from 3 to 3.2, so only up 0.2%. Minus food and energy, the government likes to look at the core because the core subtracts out food and energy. The government feels like they cannot control food and energy with monetary policy, so they strip it out and then they focus on the core. So 4.8 to 4.7, so it went down slightly. For us here investors, it's important to note July rents increased only 0.4%. Our year over year, this time last year, we're up 8%. That's down a little bit from last month at 8.3. So on this call a lot, we've talked about how even though the numbers are saying the rents are slowing down, it doesn't feel like that. And I know a lot of my clients are getting top dollar or more than they thought they would for rent amounts. So the numbers say the rents are slowing down, but I'm not sure in reality we here on this call feel it. The PPI, which is the Producer Price Index, so this is the exact same thing as the CPI, only these are the producers, these are the wholesalers or manufacturers in our U.S. economy that change the bucket of our basket, I'm going to say instead of a basket of goods. So what we look on for them is we really break it down into overall PPI, as well as the demand for goods and the demand for services. So you can see the demand for goods was up slightly, the demand for services was up even more slightly, and so overall we went from 0.2 to a 0.8%. remember the PPI is at the lowest it's been, as you guys can see. It's at the lowest it's been since before COVID, actually. So food prices rose 0.5% within this report, which made the numbers go up slightly. All right, you guys let me know what you think about the graphics. I saw the, to Jim's point, he brought this to my attention, and then I saw it on the Inner Circle. So anyone who's not a part of the Inner Circle Facebook, little plug for that, make sure you join. But Daniil had a post that he put out there. It's on the Richmond housing market, so I didn't really want to highlight anything here, Jim, because so many of our people on the call today are from outside the Richmond market, but it actually had a lot of good information on the market in general, not all specific to Richmond. So if you're in the Richmond market, absolutely check it out because it had great Richmond data. But even if you're not in the Richmond market, go to the Facebook group and join, check it out. It had actually a lot of really good, a ton, 44 pages. It had a ton of really good data. So check that out. Our herd on the streets for the week. So the notes from the Fed minutes sometimes are just as important as the meeting itself. The notes will be released this week, and we're looking for any hint at whether they're going to hike or they're going to pause. I hear 50-50 on hike or pause. Jobs data will be very important. So they don't meet in August. So September will be the next meeting. So any data we hear on jobs will be, I think they're focused on what they're going to hike, whether they're going to hike or they're going to pause. Retail sales were up 0.7% in July, higher than expectations. Student loan payments that have been deferred for years now because of COVID are scheduled to start collecting interest again due September 1, and payments start again October 1. So all of your tenants that have not been making their student loan payments, and sometimes student loans can be anywhere from $40 a month to over $1,000 a month. It just depends on who you are and how much you have and how long you spread those student loans over. They have not been making student loan payments for years now. So they've not been the habit. It's not been part of their budget. And now all of a sudden, starting October 1, they're going to have to start making those payments again. So again, having reserves and liquidity is super important in case you get into some troubles there with some of your tenants. Credit card debt has reached an all-time high, reaching $1 trillion for the first time. I thought that was amazing, but yet not amazing, right? $1 trillion for the first time. Credit card rates, we talked about this, Jim, a couple of weeks ago, are now between 21 and 25%. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
So think about that. A fifth to a quarter of your balance on your credit card is your interest rate. So again, keep those cards as low as you can to save yourself money and also to keep your score up high. Delinquency rates are now at the highest in the past 5 years. No surprise on that one, right? Our weekly conventional mortgage rates, as you can see, we are creeping up a little bit. We've gone from 7.09 last week to 7.16 this week. Now, remember, this is a weekly conventional mortgage, the conventional mortgage rates, right? So 30-year fixed rate primary residence, Fannie Freddie loan. The DSCR 30-year fixed rates are still between 7 and 10%, depends on your credit, LTV, and DSCR calculation. If you need my contact information or have been living under a rock and have not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel that Jim forced me to create, then please go ahead and scan on this one over here. All right, and then that is it. That's all I have for you. If I can help anyone, please let me know.
Yes, I'm glad you started that YouTube channel. Now that you're a month or so in, how do you like doing it?
It's a slightly stressful because it's just one more thing I have to keep up on, but I'm getting used to it. So it's not, it'll get better and better, right? I put the weekly economic updates on there. I'm posting a video each week. I have 244 followers. We need to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. So that's where I'm stressing a little bit because I'm a slight overachiever in life, if you hadn't figured that out. So from here to then to get to 1,000, and I only get a couple new ones every day. So I don't know, I got to figure something out.
And Jenny White from Mississippi is asking if you could put it, maybe just put the YouTube channel into the chat or something. So everyone.
Oh yeah, I can do that. Yep. Yeah. Thanks.
I like that you're
and
doing
then you guys let me know if you like the new slide style or not. Let me know.
Yeah.
You like it, Jeff? Okay, good. Thank you. All right.
So we've been
I was just getting bored with my own stuff.
Go ahead. So we've been talking a lot about financing the last 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, we talked about private money lending, which is like my favorite thing, both as a lender and a borrower, since I do both. And then last week we had our Finance Anything. We focused a lot on bank financing. We talked through SBA, DSCR, regional banks, all of that. We talked about financing things like self-storage and everything from a single family up to a self-storage or multifamily, if that's what you're looking for. And then today we sort of conclude this, but next week we're going to talk about self-directed IRAs, which is another source of financing, by the way, both as a lender and they're good to borrow from. So next week we're going to do that. And then today I've wanted to do wraps for a long time. There's very few people in the country that are good at teaching it. So I've sort of been waiting for Jeff to get on my schedule. And finally, a couple weeks ago, he said, I can do it on the 16th. I said, done. And here we are, Jeff. It's good to see you.
It's good to be here. Wow. Jim, I don't know what to say. I'm not sure I can agree with two of the things that you just said. Yes, I do wraps. I can teach it, but maybe I'm not the best to teach it, but whatever. I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
It's hard to teach. You're like off the chart smart, and really smart people have trouble communicating, but you've got the gift to do both. I mean, you're smart and you communicate at a level people can understand. So, well, teach it 8th grade and I'll get it.
I'm gonna start with a story, and that is that for probably the first 20 years of being a real estate investor, which would take me to, no, not quite, but I would say the first 15 years of being a real estate investor, I had no clue. I could not understand wrap.
Whoops. Are you guys still there?
Investor Cruise, and I'm sitting in the back of the room, and Dorsey Botiford Cooney, Dykes Botiford's oldest daughter, was doing a presentation on wraps, and the light bulb finally came on for me. So can you hear me? That's the first question. Okay, because I got this little pop-up that says internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, it comes in and out a little. I just put Dorsey's I don't know if you call it a training course or whatever into the chat. Because it's really good. And Chuck Glover, I mean, that's how you learned wraps, was from that course as well.
Yeah.
So Dorsey
is hands down brilliant. Her dad is
amazing. She has a good helper with her father, doesn't she?
Oh, I mean, I'm going to tell you, folks, there are days that I wake up and I just kind of pinch myself because people like Dykes Botiford and Pete Fortunato and David Tilney are friends of mine. And I'm like, who am I to have these kind of quality friends?
I say the same thing about you, Jeff. Come on.
You're Jim. Well, I say the same thing about you. I mean, there's some other people like Jeff Shahusky, who's on the call here today. I mean, just, he's lights out brilliant. All right. So let me dig into this.
I'm just here to heckle.
Yeah, well, I'm going to turn my cell phone around because I am, for some reason, it is just deciding to blow up.
And, I've seen you help other people with wraps like Alex and others, and look what they've done after they learned that. Like their self-directed IRA accounts just blow up once you learn how to do it and you get it down good and you build a network.
Doing Lonnie deals and wraps was how I took a small IRA trust and 10x'd it.
Yeah.
Okay, 10x'd it. Actually, I'm gonna just say 10, even though it's probably changed that first digit to a crooked number from what I started with. It's probably worth about 20 times what I started with now, but whatever. So let me pull up a slide deck and then start sharing a screen. And just bear with me, folks. I am not a technological genius, but I'm going to try my best.
It looks good. Co-lending wraps.
Yeah. All right. So we want to be clear about a couple of things. And I'm just going to mute. I'm going to just silence off or, close off all the pictures and just let my slide show up. There are many different ways of doing wraps. So let's be very clear. Today, I'm going to only be talking about wraps in the context of co-lending, where the entire loan is being originated at the same time. I want to say that again. I'm only talking about wraps today in the context of co-lending, where the entire loan amount, the wrap amount and the underlying amount are being originated on the same day. At some other time, Jim, we'll talk about selling on a wrap. And
Woo!
I've
Okay.
got some powerful stuff on that. There's a lot of people who are doing it wrong. I've happened to learn from some talented folks like Eddie Speed and some others on the right way to do it. So we'll talk about that at another time. Let's get into this. I gotta always do my basics, which is, folks, this is a disclaimer. I'm giving you education, not legal advice. I'm not here to sell. I'm not here to give you legal advice. I'm not here to give you professional advice. I'm not here to give you psychiatric advice. I'm not here to give you counseling. I'm not here to give you accounting. I'm here to just share some education with you. All right. And then I got to tell you that this presentation is the intellectual property of the Jeffrey S. Watson Law Firm. You may not use any of the images, graphics, or animations. And once again, this information is being shared for educational purposes for this event only. All of the rights are reserved, which means that Jim can record this and Jim can put this in the archives of whatever he's got going on. And that's it. So if somebody else is recording this, stop.
I like
Thank you.
that.
All right. So who am I? Some of you have not yet been forced to meet me. And so that's good for you, but I'm going to have to give you a couple of things. I've been a lawyer now in the state of Ohio now, I think over 32, coming up on 33 years. I'm privileged to be general counsel to a company out of Parma, Ohio called RealFlow. We have been around since 2006. We are a huge back-end software platform for real estate investors. I'm also general counsel to National Real Estate Investors Association out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I also do work for Note School, and I do work for National Wealth Builders. I've been investing in real estate since January of 1994. In fact, last night I was at the house that I bought in January of 1994. And I am a full-time practicing attorney in the state of Ohio, actively assisting and representing self-directed IRA clients. If you've got a real estate deal in another state, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm only licensed in Ohio. If it's an IRA question, because it's governed under the federal tax code, I can probably be of some assistance. So anyhow, accomplishments, just so you get an idea of the perspective I'm bringing to you. First of all, I'm really honored to be a member of the board of directors of Quest Trust Company. The fact that Quincy Long asked me to do that still puts tingles up and down my spine. I've been privileged to be in the right place at the right time with the right information and the right tenacity. And I'm going to emphasize the tenacity to be able to change and influence national housing policy 3 times now. The deed restriction off of foreclosures for Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, etc. That language was written in part by me, taking it from the egregious countrywide number 10 down to something that's not so bad, not great, but not so bad. The Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Act, when we've also done some other stuff I'll talk about in a minute. There's currently a bill pending in Congress called the Affordable Home Ownership Access Act. And people seem to think that while I'm on the Zoom, I can still talk on the phone. The Affordable Home Ownership Access Act, which would amend Dodd-Frank, the SAFE Act, and Truth in Lending to expand seller financing exemption from 3 deals to 24 deals in a 12-month period of time. I got started with doing short sales. And that's what kind of got me into the national prominence when I came up with a completely different way of doing short sale transactions back 2007, 2008. My material that I wrote was plagiarized, duplicated, copied, ripped off, duplicated by dozens of other gurus. So it must have been good. I've also been privileged to change the law in the state of Ohio 5 times, 4 times through litigation, 1 time in legislation. And then lastly, I've represented some clients that have made the Inc. 500 list in the real estate investing space. So that's a little bit about me, the perspective I bring on this. All right. And the last thing I got to tell you was with the help of a bunch of people on this Zoom call, we helped remove the self-directed IRA killing language from the Build Back Better bill in October of 21. Yes, folks, that was less than 2 years ago. The self-directed IRA industry was about ready to go out of business. with some really bad legislation on the books. And Bob Repass, myself, and worked with Congressman Henry Cuellar there in the picture, Congressman Vicente Gonzalez, and a few others to get that horrible language out of the bill before the whole bill died in the Senate. So moving on. Let's get into this, folks. I'm going to ask you to allow me to teach you how to play by the rules, yet cheat like mad. Okay, I want to just ask you if you can bear with me for me to teach you how to play by some rules and cheat like mad, particularly when we bring in a self-directed IRA in this transaction. Is everybody comfortable with me teaching you how to, quote, cheat like mad while we're still playing by the rules?
Bring it on.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about wrap loans. And when we start, let's get clear about who are the players, who are the participants, who are the people involved. So let's make it pretty simple. We're going to have three people, three different folks, so on. We've got a civilian, an ender lender, maybe an institution, but I'm really careful about that anymore. Bank lines of credits rates have skyrocketed to double digit. Then we've got the wrapping lender in the middle, and then we've got the borrower, the owner, the property owner, whoever it is that needs the capital. So we got three distinct people here, okay? And folks, you, the investor, are the person in the middle. You would be the wrapping lender. Let's get started. Okay, the borrower needs money. Every day, I'm encountering borrowers that need money. I'm a borrower. I need money. I've got my network is coming through for me big time. I'm still about 2 million light on another deal, but anyhow, we're moving on. You're the investor. You locate some money. You found a civilian, you found an ender and lender, you found somebody else that's got money that's just wasting away under the auspices of inflation in a bank account, earning maybe 4 or 5% at best, maybe only 1 or 2% at best, but you locate somebody who's looking to make maybe a little bit more money. And you negotiate some terms. You negotiate what the borrower is willing to pay, and you also negotiate what the person with the bulk of the money is willing to earn on their money. You have a couple of conversations, okay? So there's some relationships here, folks. If you haven't figured out, relationships are important, okay? So then you loan a significant amount of money behind the first and build the spread into your note. That's the key here. You loan a significant amount of money behind the first and build the spread into your note. Now, I've seen people do something that I do not recommend. I'm going to preface this 4 times by saying I do not recommend this. I have seen people take $1,000 and wrap $99,000 with their self-directed IRA and think that that's legit. And I'm going to tell you that's not. Now, my buddy John
It was
Hunt,
not in a self-directed IRA, but in somebody's checkbook. That's high leverage.
even if it's checkbook, I don't think that's enough. I want to see 10% of the wrap. I want to see 10% of the funds coming from an IRA. If it's non-IRA money, go ahead. $1,000 can wrap 99.
That's what I meant was non-IRA money, different bucket, right? Okay.
Yep, different bucket. If it's non-IRA money, you can use $1 to wrap $1 million. I don't care.
All right.
When it comes to IRA money, I want 10% in the deal. I want 10% skin in the game. My buddy John Heyer, he wants 20% skin in the game. So you figure it out, folks, okay? Now, is there any hard and fast case law, rules, regulations on that? No, it's a gut feel. It's what will pass a smell test? All right, so let's get into the players again, okay? The civilian, the ender lender, they have some money. They want to have their money working with little to no work involved on their part. The borrower, the owner, the property owner, they have a deal and they need money to fund the deal. And you're the person who has some money and you have a connection to both the property owner borrower as well as the civilian ender lender. You've got a connection with both of them. And so you can put this deal together. And let me give you an example of that deal. Okay. So we're going to put it all together. So we're going to give you an example. Your borrower needs $300,000. They're willing to pay 12%. They're going to pay $422.2 thousand over 72 months. Just take the interest and add it to the 300, and that's what you're going to get. You can put together a first position loan from the ender lender, the civilian, of 270. They're going to make 8.5% on their money. They used to be making 1 or 2% on their money in a bank account. Now they're making 8.5%. They think they have found the promised land. They are ecstatic.
8.5 is a nice return.
8.5 for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing is a fantastic return.
Yep.
Okay. Then you come in with $30,000 from your small Roth account and you wrap the 270. You notice I got 10% of skin in the game. Okay. And so you've got 72 payments of $4,800. That's their 8.5% rate of return. The same 72 payments are going to give you $1,065 with the very modest, low, conservative rate of return of 38.2%. That might almost be good enough to get Jeff Shahusky's attention.
Well,
Might.
I mean, at 38%, you're almost doubling every 2 years.
And that's my goal.
Is that even
That is my goal.
possible? Like,
That
let's
is my
get
goal.
everyone's attention.
And Jim, literally the rule of 72 is the roadmap I use. My goal is to make 37% on my money when I'm wrapping. That's my baseline rule.
Jeff,
And-
I'm not earning that much. I mean, you're making me think like, what, why am I not?
Well, okay. But Jim, it gets harder when you've got more money. All right. It gets harder.
I
Okay.
understand. But it's
All right.
especially if you have like an inherited IRA or something.
Yeah. Inherited IRAs, this is where I just go crazy. I would just go absolutely aggressive on those. But anyhow, but you take a look at this situation. Now I'm going to put a diagram on the screen to help you better understand what we're doing structure-wise, okay? So what is a wrap loan? You've got an underlying first of $270,000. You've got a second of $30,000 that wraps or encompasses or encases or includes the 270. Because it includes, that's why we call it a wrap. So what's the total amount being loaned is $300,000. Earning, the borrower is paying 12% on it, but the 270 is only earning 8.5. So all of the upside potential goes to the 30. So the 30,000 is making 12%, but the holder of the $30,000 note is also getting the difference between the 8.5 and the 12. So I'm making 3.5 on 270 plus 12% on 300, on 12% on 30. Not a bad day. Not a bad day. Do a couple of these a month and you're going to be doing really well.
Can everyone see how this is like, we always think about leveraging, like when you borrow from a bank to buy a rental. In this case, you're being the banker and you're still leveraging. Does everybody
But
catch that?
you're creating leverage in a non-UBIT manner.
Well,
A
even
wrap
so.
in this manner does not generate UBIT because the IRA with the 30,000 did not borrow the 270. It co-lent the 270. It came along beside and behind the 270. So there is no UBIT if you're using an IRA here. All right. Let me move to my next slide. So let's give a different example here. Okay. Different example. Okay. Civilian ender has $150,000 she's willing to loan out at 9.5% interest. Okay. The investor has a home he wants to purchase. He needs 160 to fund the deal. Willing to pay 12% on the money. The wrapping investor has 10K and the connection between the two of them. Okay. So let's put this deal up on the screen and work it out a little bit
So
more.
if
So how
somebody
is
has
this?
$10,000,
Right.
you're a little light to do the full 160. So you bring in a financial friend or partner for the 150.
Correct.
And you come
So we've got-
together on this.
We've got the let me get back to this. We've got the underlying 150 earning 9.5%. We've got the whole 160 earning 12%. So the person who's taking the 10 and wrapping the 150 is making 12% on their 10, and they're making the difference between 9.5 and 12 on the 150. Once again, not a bad day, not creating and generating any UBIT. We're wrapping and we're co-lending and we're originating both notes at the same time. We're originating both mortgages or deeds of trust at the same time. And that's where we are. Now, let me put the next thing up on the screen. So we're going to look at what's the Sevilla Ender's position. 72-month loan, 9.5% interest, $150,000 lent. They're going to receive a payment of $270.4120. Everybody's happy. All right. So, but the wrap investor is collecting a payment of $3,128.03. So if you take the total loan amount at 12%, amortizing over 72 months, the payment on that is $33,128.03. They remit to the other lender that put in the 150, they remit 2741.20, $2,741.20 to the underlying lender in first position. Okay, so I collect one payment. From that payment I collect, I then pay out to my wrap lender their portion, keeping the difference to me. Okay, so so the $10,000 over 6 years grows to $27,850 over a 6-year period of time, which is a 42.66 rate of return. Is that good enough?
Oh, well, of course.
I know, but I'm just
I'm not
asking the question.
making that.
Well, anytime you're making, anytime the rule of 70, yeah, anytime you're making more than 18%, I think you're doing great. All right. So let me get into
yes.
Let me get into some technical stuff here, and then we'll get into some of the I think there's probably a flood of questions, but we'll get into the technical stuff and then have fun with it. All right, so let's talk about the stuff that no one else talks about when it comes to these wraps. And that is explaining it to a title company, because title companies don't see this on a normal basis. Title companies get confused. And I find that when you explain it to them in the form of a closing instructions letter, they begin to figure out what's going on. So part of my closing instructions letter, when I'm putting together a wrap deal, is that the first thing that has to get recorded is the deed from the seller to the buyer should be recorded first. We always got to get the deed recorded first. Then immediately following the recording of the deed, the first position mortgage, or if you're in another state with a deed of trust, the first position deed of trust from wherever that underlying lender is for the 150 is to be recorded. Immediately thereafter, the mortgage in favor of whoever's putting up the 10,000, it gets recorded for the $160,000 wrap mortgage. So we go deed, first mortgage, wrap mortgage, in that order. The deed first, the first mortgage, the wrap mortgage. In that order, they have to be recorded. I explain that to the title company. Does that always work? No. But most of the time it does. If I don't explain it, they don't know what they're doing. They get all confused. So let's talk about this. So how much does the borrower really owe? Because somebody's going to be looking at me and go, well, Jeff, we're recording two mortgages, one for 150 and one for 160.
It does confuse people. I've had title companies ask me that.
Oh, I don't want to embarrass, but I was working with a former client and he was going to make a wrap loan and the attorney for the borrower couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
The attorney for the borrower, and I was like, you went to law school, right?
But he didn't go to economics.
You know how to read, right? You know how to read, right? You understand English, right? Well, you know, because what they couldn't do is they couldn't understand the language I'm going to show you in just a minute. So how much does the borrower really owe? Do they owe 160 that they're paying 12% on? Or do they owe 310? I'm going to tell you, if you don't know how to read, you're going to think they owe 310. But if you know how to read, you're going to realize they only owe 160. But I've seen attorneys and title companies not be able to read. So let's get into what they can and can't, what they can't read, but what they should read, okay? So this is a sample of an addendum to a note that I use in an IRA situation, okay? So let's say Quest Trust Company, comma, custodian, FBO, Jeff Watson, IRA, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and Build Bigger and Better, LLC, you know, dated whatever, okay? So Build Bigger and Better LLC is lending the 160. My IRA is coming in with the 10% more. Boom, we're going on, okay? So just read this note very carefully, and I want you to see what I put on the screen here. Payee herein. So who's the payee? The payee is the IRA, okay? By acceptance, this note acknowledges his or their duty to the payor herein. Who is the payor?
Person
The
making.
payor is the borrower. To pay any obligation that may be owed, which is evidenced by a note of even date given in favor of the underlying source of money right here. Everybody see how my cursor is going back and forth? This is where describing the underlying source of money, okay? So payee, once again, specifically agrees that in the event said obligation becomes in default or the payor is not in default. What does that mean? That means if you're collecting money on a wrap and you're not satisfying the underlying, you're in default, even though the payor is paying on time. Then the payor shall then have the right to pay whatever sum is required to remedy default, and such sum expended shall be credited against any installments due hereunder as they mature. Which means if you collect money on a wrap and you don't remit to the underlying, and the borrower finds out, the borrower can stop paying you, pay the underlying directly, and tell you to pound salt till they have to finally owe you some more money, okay? And the payee acknowledges that it's their duty to take all necessary action to present any foreclosure of the above mortgage and to obtain satisfaction of the mortgage no later than the maturity of the original indebtedness secured, blah, 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 okay? I put this language in here so that it's clear that when the borrower signs this note, they're like, oh, the person I'm paying on this note has the duty to make the payment on the other note that I'm signing. I'm going to say that again. When the borrower is signing both promissory notes, the second note says that the person that they're paying on the second note has the duty to make the payment on the first note. So let me jump back. I want to make sure everybody sees that because that gets people so confused.
It really does.
So let me make sure of this.
So that's an addendum to the promissory note?
Addendum to the promissory note.
Okay, I like it. I haven't seen that. I like it.
Let me see if I can get to the right slide. Where is it? Where am I?
Maria, I
Okay,
see your
right here.
question. We'll get that in a little bit.
Right here. Okay. So on this scenario that I talked about, the wrapping lender receives a payment of $3,128.03. From that $3,100, they have to pay $2,741 to the underlying lender, the other investor lender. Okay, so they only get to keep that $400 some odd spread. But at $400 and some odd a month over 72 months, they get back their $10,000 and they get back another $17,850 on top of it. That's the key element I want everyone to understand here is that the borrower should only make one payment. You as the wrapping lender should receive that payment and promptly from that payment satisfy the obligation to the underlying one. So I've got a deal right now that it's a wrap loan running this way. It's been running since pre-COVID, and I check on a regular basis to find out when does my borrower pay, because right after that, I got to send a check out to the underlying. Okay. All right. Let's get into this a little bit more. I want you to see this language. Payee herein by acceptance of the sig note acknowledges his or their duty to the payor herein to pay any obligation which is evidenced by a note of even date given in favor of the underlying lender. Okay. I'm going to leave that on the screen because I want you to see where that says, because the payee is the wrapping lender by acceptance of this note acknowledges their duty to the payor herein to pay any obligation that may be owed on a note of even date. What does that mean? That means the original note of the 160 that we wrapped.
Jeff, can you
Okay.
go over payee, payor one more time, just to make sure everyone's got it?
Sure. So the payee is the person who is collecting the payments. In this instance, it's the wrapping lender is the payee. They're the ones receiving the monthly or quarterly payments. The payor is the borrower who is making those payments. And when they're making a payment on a wrap loan situation, they pay the wrapping lender. The wrapping lender receives the payment, and from that payment makes the payment to the underlying or wrapped loan.
So let's do this, Jeff, real quick. Let's say that you and I are gonna do one together. I'm gonna put my funds up at 9%. Okay?
Okay.
90% of the funds needed for the loan. You're gonna put up 10%. You're gonna take in 12%. So
Okay.
who's the payor, payee? Where does the payment go, and how does it end up to both of us?
Okay, so you're putting in 90, I'm putting in a 10. We're making a $100,000 loan to Jeff Shahusky because I'm picking on Jeff today. So Jeff's going to make a payment of $1,200 a month to me. Okay.
All right.
Out of that, I'm going to collect, out of that $1,200 I collect, I'm going to remit $900 back to Jim. Jeff Shahusky is the payor. Jeff Watson is the payee, and Jim Ingersoll is the holder of the note of even date that is the underlying wrap amount of 90.
Did that help everyone? I think it helps when we have real people.
It does. So go back. Let me do this. Let me go back to the let me go back to one of the beginning slides. I'm going to just make everybody's eyes blur and hurt for a second. Okay, right here. See where these arrows are going? The property owner borrower has the money. They've gotten the money now. They make a payment to the wrapping lender. See that arcing arrow? They make a payment of $1,200. Jeff Shahusky here makes a payment to Jeff Watson here. Jeff Watson makes a payment to Jim Ingersoll over here. Jim Ingersoll lent 90,000. Jeff put 10 into the deal. Shahusky borrowed 100 and is at 12%. Making a $1,200 payment here, $900 goes over here. Watson pockets 300, Ingersoll keeps 900, and Jeff has the property or the deal.
Yes.
We good on that?
I would like to do that deal.
So would I. I'd like to collect checks from Jeff Shahusky rather than have to send him money. Oh. I am certain that the payoff on my loan with him has just gone up.
But I like your money, Jeff. It's
Yeah,
good.
I know you.
It's
I know
good,
you.
qualified. It's just like having a competent attorney. You have competent money.
go.
Okay. Oh, folks, this is so much fun. Okay, now I'm going to show you one more document that hopefully will help you understand. This is the part, this is the second part that the attorneys and title companies don't read and don't understand. This is in the mortgage. Remember, this is in the promissory note. This is the addendum to the promissory note. Now we also have it again in the mortgage or in the deed of trust, but I'm doing business in mortgage states. So this mortgage is given a secure payment as evidenced by a certain promissory note, blah, 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 blah. Okay. This mortgage is subject to a mortgage in favor of Jim Ingersoll, dated of even date and recorded immediately prior and senior to this mortgage in Ashtabula County, Ohio. Actually, I should go Green Bay. I should just say Green Bay County, Wisconsin, because that's where Jeff Shahusky's hanging out, okay? The indebtedness reflected in this mortgage includes the indebtedness in said mortgage. The indebtedness in the $100,000 Shahusky to Watson mortgage includes the $90,000 indebtedness of Shahusky to Ingersoll. But people don't understand words like prior and senior to, or subject to, or includes the indebtedness in said mortgage. But we go on. Therefore, the grantee herein, which is the person, which would be Jeff Watson, by acceptance of this mortgage, does specifically agree to pay any payments due pursuant to said prior and senior mortgage, according to the terms of said prior and senior mortgage, and the notes secured thereby. So once again, this mortgage for $100,000 given by Shahusky to Watson is subordinate to and includes the $90,000 mortgage given by Shahusky to Ingersoll. Which means that when Shahusky makes the payment to Watson on that mortgage, Watson then has to take from that payment and make the Ingersoll payment. And as we talked about the example in the numbers, there's a $1,200 payment from Jeff Shahusky to Jeff Watson. And from that $1,200, Jeff Watson gives $900 to Jim Ingersoll.
Yeah, see how the money's sort of flowing along?
So hopefully we've made it as clear as mud that is settling to the bottom of the pool. And so people can see that this is a very powerful way of supercharging rates of return on some smaller sums of money. And you notice I use examples, $30,000, $10,000, not a lot of money. Okay, not a lot of money in the scope of things. So this is a powerful, powerful thing, but I'm going to tell you, you have to be able to comfortably explain this.
That's the hard part.
And you have to be able to point to paperwork that says, hey, when Jeff Shahusky makes the payment to me, out of that payment, I got to pay Jim Ingersoll. So that Jeff Shahusky is like, okay, so if I make one payment to Watson, that includes the payment to Ingersoll. Yes. So I'm not making two payments, one to Watson for $1,200 and another payment to Ingersoll for $900. No, you're not paying $2,100 a month. You're only paying $1,200 a month, because out of the $1,200, I got to pay $900 to Jim. And when I've explained that to borrowers, the light bulb finally comes on and they say, okay, I get it. I'm borrowing this much money. This is what it's cost me. That's what you told me it was going to be. I go, yep. But this is the way that we're putting the deal together. Okay. And they go along with it then. And that, my folks, my friends, is the end of the slide deck. So I'm going to stop the share. And yes, I'm still here. And Jeff, where are you? Are you in Wisconsin or are you in Florida?
Looks like he's in a boat.
I'm in Wisconsin. I'm up in Door County, which is up towards the tip of the finger that sticks out into Lake Michigan.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
It's a vacation area that's known as the Cape Cod of the Midwest.
Huh? Never heard of it. Sounds nice.
Yep.
Yeah,
all right.
Nice.
So
two things, Jeff. I think of when I think of these wraps. First of all, people think they have small dollar IRAs, just a little money sitting in a checking account that they can't lend. But the fact is, you can lend. If you've
So-
got $10,000 or $20,000, you can make a $200,000 or $300,000 loan potentially.
If I've got 10 grand, I can wrap 90 with it or 100 with it on my IRA, and I can go make a great rate of return.
I mean,
And-
particularly like an HSA or a brand new Roth.
Yep. Yeah. These are some very powerful tools to grow small dollar accounts like CISAs and HSAs and beginning Roth accounts. These are very, very powerful tools. And I'm going to be very clear about this. I want you to put 10% skin in the game from your
Within
self-directed account. And you do not, I'm going to say this again because somebody didn't hear me the first 4 times. You do not trigger UBIT.
And then the other thing, Jeff, is like if somebody's got a couple $100,000 sitting in their IRA, you could do a $200,000 loan on your own. Or you could take that and leverage it into, easily into $1 million of loans.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
And how much higher would the return be if you did it that way?
I don't know. It depends on how you negotiate. I mean, the key to these deals, okay? The key to these deals is underwrite. Because you've got to make sure it's very clearly understood what happens if something goes bump in the night. For example, when I made a large deal, a large wrap loan to on a commercial operation in Cleveland pre-COVID, during COVID, we had no payments for 5 months, but I wrote the loan docs that both notes were stayed to where my obligation to pay the underlying only occurred as I received payments. So the interest was accruing on both notes, but it accrued faster and more aggressively in my wrapping note than in the underlying note. So that's something you want to think about. And folks, I'm going to tell you straight up. If you go do a wrap deal without, 1, buying Dorsey Botiford's course, you're making a mistake. Number 2, if you go do a wrap deal and you don't consult with a knowledgeable real estate attorney in your area, you're going to make a mistake. I'll leave it at that.
That's good. That's good. All right. Who's doing wraps? Chuck Glover, could you unmute real quick? Since you and I are messaging on the side here. Are you able
Yes.
to?
Yeah, I've done probably about 70%, 60 to 70% of all the loans I've made have been wraps.
So you've done more than 50 of them.
Yes.
And what has the impact been to your life with learning just this one little niche thing?
It's enabled me to be a private money lender because I didn't have a ton of money. I won't go through the whole story, but life's had its tough moments. Didn't have a ton of money, but I had some. And then I heard about Dorsey's course, took the course, and it just, changed everything. It was like the light bulb and all that stuff. And since then, at my age, I'm 74, and most of the people I know, their retirement incomes are dwindling because they have to live off of it. I mean, their retirement accounts. And mine's tripled in the past 3.5 years. I've 3x'd it. What Jeff is saying about having a competent lawyer. Not all lawyers understand this wrap thing as far as drawing up the paperwork. I don't mess with, I know Dykes maybe doesn't teach exactly this, but I don't do my own paperwork. I have my lawyer do it. And I've worked with my lawyer for about a year or so as we developed what Jeff has laid out here about the addendums and the stipulations. It's taken some time, but we've managed to work it out over the past 3 years, and it's been very profitable.
All right, thanks for sharing. Anyone else been doing some wraps? Chuck, what was sort of the hardest part about getting started and sort of learning this niche financing?
For me personally, even after taking, of course, I didn't do anything until I took Dorsey's course. But even after that, it was just really kind of, no pun intended, wrapping my mind around the concept. But basically, it was my And by the way, Dorsey is a wonderful resource because after you take a course, you can text her, email her, call her, and she always responds promptly. And I had tons of questions and she always responded promptly, but it was mainly around the paperwork, making sure that the language. I've had issues with clerks of court coming and say, wait a minute, this is, not the right, it doesn't add up to the right amount. And you have to kind of say, well, read section 2 or whatever it is and understand, so that has been a challenge too, me getting the paperwork right and then helping closed settlement agents and clerks of court understand exactly what's
Doc, how
going
do
on.
you have the conversation with somebody to borrow their money in the primary position at 8 or 9% or 10%, wherever you're at?
I'm sorry, Jim, was that question for me?
How do you find your investor to go into the wrap with you?
Well, I'll give you one example. I had my checkup, my dentist office checkup a few months ago, and everything was good, and I've been going to this dentist for a while, so we had a moment of conversation. I handed him a business card and said, if you have some money sitting in a bank account or a stock account or something that it isn't performing up to say 8%, 9%, and you'd like to do more with it, let me know because I'm looking for partners. Is kind of the way I worded it, co-lenders, partner investors. And he was all ears. And he gave me his card. I mean, how often do dentists give you their personal phone number? And he gave me his card and said, let's get together, get in touch with me, or let's get together or something. And we've talked since then. So
love it.
That's one example. Just let people, Jeff Chayhusky has said this many times, let people know what you're doing.
Tell your story, right? Goes back to what we talk about all the time. Jeff Watson, what do you think is the hardest part about wraps? And why don't I do them more and everyone else?
I think the hardest part is understanding it well enough to explain it to somebody else. And the person that's the hardest one to explain it to is the borrower. Because if they get nervous thinking that, oh, wait, I owe more than I really think I do, you've lost the deal. I remember one of the first wrap loans I ever did. I was so fortunate that Dorsey Bodiford was nearby, and she settled that borrower right down because the borrower knew who she was and trusted her. And she said, no, look at this. And she just, I created all the docs. The borrower was sitting there reading them. He was a little confused. Dorsey walked her through and said, hey, look at this part here, look at this part here, see what this means. And as soon as she said it and he read it, we were all good. We were good to go.
It goes back to relationships and relational capital. And I think I don't see any issue with that part. To me, the harder part's finding people at a little bit lower interest. The civilian lender to me is a little bit more challenging because those of us that want to earn 10+%, aren't going to love doing this a lot. Though, I could be talked into being in that middle position some of the time. If you work in a network, maybe, you help each other out here and there. So that's kind of my thought. Does anybody have a question that we haven't answered? You can either repost it in the chat or just unmute real quick. And then we're going to close out in just a minute here. Jeff, are you in Ohio? Where are you today?
I'm in my office in Ohio today.
Nice. Love it.
I'm gonna do my best to not be on an airplane for another 4 weeks.
Love it.
I'm gonna do my best.
And I don't go like you, but I just got back and Joe and I are going to Spain in 3 weeks. And I said, that's it. Like I'm nothing in between for sure. Love it.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Ronnie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
Yeah, I think I have a question or more of a request. For those who have done wraps deal like Chuck and yourself, it would be easier to maybe suggest the title companies or the attorneys you've used, because it's hard to understand the concept, but it's even harder to understand it enough to explain to, as a newbie like me. So working with like attorneys or title companies that already know what it is will make it a lot easier. I mean, we still need to learn more, but yeah, basically just suggesting some of those companies. Yeah, that's about
Well,
it.
I'm sorry, people are private messaging me as well. So I think you're in Richmond like me, so what I would do is ask people where they're doing these. So
Right.
you probably should have lunch with Chuck sometime and ask him where he's doing them.
Mhm.
I know of a couple places that I've done them, but I haven't done them recently, and I should be. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my take on it. There are people, it just takes some time. The other thing
Right.
is, Jeff, people can hire you, right, for the docs. And you could help explain it to a title company if you really needed to for that credibility piece.
So what I do, you can hire me to get a baseline template version of these documents, as well as a baseline template of a closing instruction letter that's about 2 to 3 pages long, walking the title company or the closing attorney through it, to where if they can read English and they've been doing their job for more than 9 months, they'll figure it out. It's pretty simple. And I mean, there's times I've had to break out a box of crayons. And then they get it. Then they get it. And I mean, it took me seeing some of those slides that I showed you today that Dorsey graciously allowed me to use for me to get the concept. I had to see a picture to go with all the words. And once I got the picture to go with the words, boom, it was easy.
Well, the one I did was with a title company, and they just kept saying, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm 100% sure." And then they didn't push back anymore because I don't think they understood it, but they processed it.
But here the key that I have discovered, and I learned this from my friend Herb Kramer, who's one of the best real estate lawyers in Ohio. Herb, managing partner of a large firm in Cleveland, Ohio for a number of years. They ran more foreclosures and more real estate deals than anybody else in the state of Ohio. And he's a dear personal friend. When Herb explained to me the importance of a easy to read at an 8th grade level closing instruction letter to a title company, so that you give them a checklist of stuff to do and the order to do it, that's what clicked. That when I started laying that out and writing it out, and once I started explaining it in a closing instruction letter, I got very clear about what was going on, and title companies got very clear. And so now I don't get pushback from title companies because they just read it and they go, "Oh, now it makes sense."
I like that letter. I've never used that, but I think it would really create a lot of clarity if I had. For sure.
I have check boxes on the front of every single statement in my closing instructions so that the title agent, as they go through the closing instructions, can check them off. So I turned it into a checklist for them. It's so much cleaner and so much simpler.
Yep.
Yep, you are looking good today. I gotta say. You look
That's
healthy.
just because I just shaved. First time in like a week.
looking good. Jeff, you've done a lot of these wraps. What's the impact been on your investments having done them?
Yeah, that's an easy one. I will give this example.
Okay.
There are 3 types of deals that I've done to take a $6,000 IRA-owned trust and make it grow 20-fold to now where it's worth well over 120,000. And wraps were the most important tool in doing it.
Okay.
And for if you're trying to get a hold of me, the best way to find me is watsoninvested.com.
I put that up and
watsoninvested.com.
I told everyone to sign up for your
Yeah.
newsletter a little while ago. You just sent one out this morning on subject 2. It was really good.
I did one yesterday on title companies. How to be a friendly investor, because I'm just going to go on a soapbox, Jim. I'm sorry. I'm not going to look at the clock right now. I'm sick and tired of seeing this. I'm looking for an investor friendly title company. To me, that's code for I don't know what I'm doing and I need someone to do it for me. No, you need to figure out what you're doing. And then you need to be able to explain what you're doing and do it right. And then title companies will love you.
Yeah.
Title companies will love you when you lay it out for them, when you don't make them chase you for information, when you've got your stuff organized, when you've got your entity filed, you got your operating agreement, you got your tax ID letter, you got your trust agreement, you got your purchase and sales agreement all filled out. Man, they love you.
No, you could say the same thing. I see it all the time in my own Facebook group, looking for an investor-friendly lawyer or investor-friendly realtor. Get your stuff straight and the rest of it becomes easy.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. Thank you. And so I think I did it. If I did an email today on subject 2, that's
Maybe
great
not.
because
I was thinking of that one.
I'm doing a class this weekend, about a 4, maybe 5-hour class this weekend with Aria out of Kansas City. It's all virtual. Everybody's virtual, and I mean, you get 5 hours of me for $69
Wow.
on subject 2. I mean, I
Where do
can't.
you sign up for that one, Jeff? I'll put it in here. Do you know?
Jim, I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah,
should-
$69 to
Jeff.
get 4 to 5 hours of my time.
You should come back and post it into the Facebook group.
Send it
Because
to me. I'll be
You
happy.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are also recording it, which means that if I miss any part of it, I get the recording and I can come back later too. So even if I'm not available on Saturday, $69 for 5 hours of an attorney's time.
Yep,
Okay.
69
Can't
bucks
beat
for
it.
5 hours, 69 bucks for 4 to 5 hours of my time talking about subject 2 that's recorded, and you get the rights to listen to the recording. I can't believe Kim Tucker at Mary talked me into it, but we're doing it. We're doing it. So if I don't have the link right now in front of me, and I'm not sure where I could go find it without losing complete concentration. So
All right.
I'll post it in. I will post it in a couple of groups online. I'll post it in, and we'll just go from there. I'll find it and get it up in there.
Yes, post it and I'll get it
Yep.
over. Let me take a look. I'll help you with that. Jeff, thank you so much. It's so nice to hang out with you. You look fabulous, and glad you're back in Ohio and not traveling for a few days.
Yeah, I need to. I got home about 11 o'clock Sunday night from about a really good Quest event in Dallas, Texas, and I could just tell my body was starting to say those things of take care of me for a while. Stop
Right.
feeding your brain, take care of me, Yeah. So
Well, it's really nice to catch up with you on Zoom. I can't wait to see you in person again. Jeff C is really getting me onto that cruise in March. You're going to be there as well, right?
I believe I was one of the first ones to register for that cruise.
I think I've got Cheryl talked into it, so look forward to that. And it's good to see everybody, guys.
Jennifer, thank you. Jennifer posted the link in the chat
All
to
right, there it
register
is.
for that $69 training. Thank you,
There it
Jennifer.
is.
Thank
All
you.
right. Mid-America Real Estate Association, John, thank you for that.
Yep.
Found it.
I'm gonna just ramble for a second here, okay? It's often so said that it feels like water on a duck's back, that your network is your net worth. But folks, that is imperative for you to understand it. I'm working on some really big deals right now, big deals for me, a big apartment complex acquisition, some other stuff. And the relationships that I have, the network that I have is what's making the deal come together. And folks, if you don't show up at Dealmaker events, if you don't go to the cruise that Jeff Shahusky's involved with and so on, if you're not doing that kind of stuff, you're not hanging out with the right crowd. You're just not. And you're not developing the right people as relationships and contacts and resources. And you've got to start showing up at things like Dealmaker. You've got to start doing other things. And I'm just going to pitch this last thing. When Pete Fortunato's talking, if you're not paying attention, shame on you. When David Tilney's talking and you're not paying attention, shame on you. When Dykes Boddiford's talking and you're not paying attention, shame on you. These are people that are legends in the residential real estate space. Jim, you've learned tons from them. I've learned tons from them. There's a bunch of people on this call that have learned tons from them. And if you're not paying attention to, guys like John Schaub, David Tilney, Pete Fortunato, Dykes Boddiford, and I could name some more names, pay attention to Bill Cook. Bill Cook's got a lot of stuff that he gets down at a really good level. Those are quality people, and we all trace them. I can trace them all back to the late Jack Miller. And I'm going to close with this statement. If you didn't know Jack Miller, or if you're not learning from people that learn from Jack, then you don't know jack about real estate. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yes, I'll tell you, Jeff, I think if Cheryl and I hadn't started going to Tampa in like 2006 or whenever that was, and met Jack Miller, that's what expanded my network quickly. And truthfully, back then I had just quit my job out of corporate America, and it's like Cheryl and I are looking like at our checking account saying, no. And Cheryl eventually said, all right, if you want to try this, let's go. And sometimes you just got to have the guts to take that first step. And for us, that was multiple trips back to Tampa, Peter Fortunato, Jack Miller, all these, John Shaw, David Tilney, Dykes Botiford, and it really, from there, everything opened up.
Yep.
Made a big impact on my life as well. Completely agree. All right, Jeff, thank you.
Thank you. It's been a privilege. It's been an honor. Thank you so much. And, you know, let's see if we can make my schedule work again and come do this again whenever you're ready to have somebody like me show up again. Okay.
I really appreciate you as a friend too, Jeff, and just being able to text with you regularly brightens my day and encourages my soul in a way that's very warm. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm gonna just close. I guess I closed one, so I'm gonna just do that typical Baptist preacher close. And I'm just gonna tell you folks, it's not all about nickels and noses. It's not about how much money we make. It's about the lives that we impact and the legacy that we build. And for me, my legacy is all about pointing people towards Jesus Christ and having a better relationship with him. And with that, peace, Watson out.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in today. I hope you learned a lot. I'm sure that it expanded your thinking a little bit on financing in a new niche. Jeff, I look forward to catching up with you, everyone who shared. It's good to see you guys, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you guys later.